Grande Prairie-Wapiti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Albertans are common sense people and they want common sense solutions. If left to them, we would have a caribou recovery plan that is practical, effective in areas where it makes sense. Instead, we have a government that trumpets economic diversification on one hand, and on the other hand, plans to unnecessarily sterilize large swaths of forest. To the Minister of Economic Development, can you please explain how shutting down sustainable forestry enterprises creates jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Environment and Parks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And of course, I've answered the question a few times now, but let me say it once more for the folks in the back. We have, in fact, written to the federal government announcing that we are suspending consideration of conservation lands recommended in the Caribou Task Force report and some aspects of range planning pending a socioeconomic analysis. Mr. Speaker, we will redouble our efforts to work with industry to develop solutions that avoid the imposition of an environmental protection order. Certainly, that Species at Risk Act is a very inflexible instrument, and that's why it is really unfortunate that the member of the for Calgary-Lougheed didn't fix it when he had the chance.
First supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that Banff and Jasper National Parks could not sustain caribou herds despite thoroughly protected habitat, and given that 52,000 square kilometres, almost one-third of the caribou range in northwestern Alberta, is already protected, Minister, how much land are you willing to sterilize for a species that could not survive in parks with pristine wilderness and absolutely no industrial activity?
Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And it is not true that oil and gas companies and forestry companies are looking at this as a zero-sum. Many have come to us with very substantive and practical solutions, and they are actually making those real on the ground, Mr. Speaker. And that's because they, too, understand the risk of a protection order. But we understand as a province, having heard from communities, that we need more time to get this strategy right. Certainly over the last 2 years, we've gained a strong understanding of the health of the herds and the science and what measures need to be taken to reach the requirements under the Species at Risk Act, and that's the message that we will be taking to Ottawa, as well as the other measures that we've asked Ottawa to consider.
Second supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that problems multiply when we try to rebalance nature, such as the protections that have resulted in expanding grizzly numbers in northwestern Alberta, and given that this government plans to create pens for mums and calves, but grizzlies will have no problem digging under the fence to get at the trapped animals. Minister, is the caribou management plan an effective one, or will it simply rub out the forestry sector and the caribou as well?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I am not going to engage in amateur wildlife biology right now. We have proceeded in terms of understanding the health of the herds. We are proceeding based on science and evidence, and we are asking the federal government for assistance in this matter. That's why we will be going to Ottawa with a united voice from Alberta. That's why we've asked for their assistance with the socioeconomic study, and that is why we have suspended some aspects of caribou range planning, because we have heard loud and clear from the communities in the northern ridings that the member from Peace River, Whitecourt, St. Anne, Denvegan Central Peace have been advocating for their constituents as well. Thank you.